Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Uh, you know, it's all just a great time lately.
Right?
But anyway, I'm really glad that you're here, and I'm really excited to learn about more about your press.
So, hi, I'm Kristine Langley Mahler. I am the publisher and director of Split Lit Press. We have been a small press running since 2014. So, we are actually in our 10th anniversary year right now, which is very exciting. We were started by the same person who also started Split Lit Magazine. And when people hear Split Lit, half the time they're thinking of the magazine, half the time we hope now they're thinking of us. So, we always tell people, when you have a single piece, you send it to them. When you have a book, you send it to us. Like, we're cousins from back in an old family tree, but we've actually been operated separately since about 2017. Similar aesthetic, but also really big difference is that we do not publish poetry. Our tag phrase is boundary breaking prose. We can direct you toward a lot of other really great poetry presses, but we are not really the home for you there. Now, that being said, we publish fiction and nonfiction hybrid. We do 4 reading periods every year, a short story flash fiction reading period, which runs from January 1st to March 1st. Then we do a chapbook reading period, and we tend to alternate genres there. But last year we did open genre, and I'm thinking this next year we're going to do open genre as well. And we do that from April 1st until June 1st. Then we run a reading period for novels and novellas. And let me just say, the novellists have been finding us. We are really happy to be providing a home for novellas. We're still looking for like our big novel. It's been every year we get real close. Everyone's got a novel in a drawer, and we always love reading people's novels. We also really love reading people's novellas. So we read for that period from July 1st until September 1st. The reading period we're actually in right now is nonfiction hybrid full length. So that can be essay collections, it can be memoirs, it can also be nonfiction hybrid work. When we use the term hybrid can mean different things to different people. We're looking for things that still kind of qualify as nonfiction, but they're pushing the boundaries a little bit more there. So that's from October 1st until December 1st. We also publish 4 books a year, basically in those categories as well. We're publishing 4 books a year. We're also reading for 4 books a year, and we're also accepting 4 books a year. We keep them categorized differently like that because as a writer myself, when I was submitting my book, my first book places, I'm a nonfiction writer, and I got really frustrated when places would just be open for prose book submissions because invariably they would always be picking fiction to publish there because fiction is just like the darling of the literary world, or at least it was for a long time. When we're reading for a nonfiction book, we are taking a nonfiction book. But I also started thinking, short stories versus a novel, I mean, that's a very different sort of book as well. They really shouldn't be competing for each other in the same category. So we separated those 2 out. And then also we've had a history of publishing chapbook length work. And for us, chapbook length work really is just when a book is complete and it's under 100 pages. We totally understand that books don't have to really go long. Sometimes the work is just done and it's short. We treat it with the same respect as our full-length books, which is to say, I mean, it's bound, it has an ISBN, we promote it and publicize it the same way. We don't see it as like a little sampler in the way that I think sometimes chapbooks have been viewed in the past as like kind of a teaser for someone's full length. We see them and we, read for chapbooks that are full and complete as they are. I say boundary breaking prose because we love being surprised by what boundaries are being broken by the books that people send to us. Sometimes it's a formal boundary, like the prose is appearing differently on the page, or there's being image inclusion. We actually have a graphic memoir coming out by Aubrey Hirsch in October 2025, which I'm really, really excited about because that's a boundary we've been hoping and trying to and wanting to break for quite a while, moving into, what does it look like when we are publishing a fully image-based work? That's an example of one type of boundary. Other boundaries we see sometimes are subject matter that, hasn't really been discussed or hasn't been discussed in this way in a long time. We also look for boundary breaking as an opportunity to lift up voices that are historically underrepresented. As a small press that's not bound to a university, we really have a lot of latitude to make sure that the books we're publishing are the ones we believe in and the work that we believe needs to be in the world. And yes, we publicize it. Yes, we market it. Yes, we want them to sell a lot, but also that's not our primary concern when we take a book. Another phrase I use like at conferences when people are like, tell me about your press. I say, well, we kind of also think of ourselves as a literary incubator because we tend to take books from people who are really early in their careers. It's absolutely not a requirement. We've published books from people who've had books out before, but more often than not, it feels like authors who are early in their career seem to be drawn to us. They often have and will go on to have much bigger literary careers and publish with bigger places and get bigger sales and bigger books and bigger book promotion. And that is something we love. I feel like we kind of give people a really soft entrance point into book publishing. So like we do what we can, but also like we see the talent early. So like when we take a book from you, it's not just like a validation that this book is good. It's more like we believe you are destined for more. It really, like the extent of validation goes beyond we see where you're going and like we want to be part of getting your voice out there.
I love that. I'm going to ask you a million questions about the back end, but I'm really excited to hear about the graphic work that you're doing because I've looked at your submissions before and I think the only thing that it says is just that it has to be in black and white.
I mean, I'm hoping we're going to be able to alter the black and white image thing. So Aubrey's book is coming out in full color. And we got Aubrey's book. She was originally signed with Mason Jar Press, but they kind of had to go on a hiatus. They were like, we are not going to be able to get it out on time. Would you be interested in taking it on? And we went, I know this book is going to be good. Let us see what we can do on our back end. So, I mean, we're very much in the process right now, like we are working through it. We just finished edits and now we're working on layout, which is brand new for us too. I mean, doing layout on a graphic collection is very, very different for our favorite designer in the world. I mean, he's out there, he's doing it. And I'm feeling positive that we're going to be able to, in the future, say we're open to doing color. It's also, like you said, I mean, on the back end, it's brand new for us looking up printers who will be open to doing that, understanding we're going to have to adjust pricing, which is a thing. We went from $12 a chapbook to $14 a chapbook just because the rising costs of everything. Our books, we used to have it 16 and now we have to have it 18 for the same reason. And Aubrey's book is going to have to be a little bit more than that, but we're trying to keep it reasonable. Part of being a small press, of course, is like we have much tighter profit margins. We're not a nonprofit, so we don't have those donations helping us go. Like what we have is our sales that help us go. We know our market also, which are, people who love books, want to hold books, but don't have a lot of money to throw down on the $28 hardback first release, and no one wants to wait a year for a paperback. We're getting there. We're going to figure it out.
I really love the aesthetic of the outside of your book. They are really nice to hold. I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of them are actually very soft. Like a nice soft book.
Matte soft cover. Like it is it's the only way to go. I mean, luckily our previous books before I took over as director had been published with the same matte soft cover. And so we were really able to keep it consistent, which is a good thing. Because if we'd had the shiny ones, I would have been like, we can't break our aesthetic, but also like, I don't like that. I love just the textural feel. And speaking of which, it's been interesting for us too, to start moving into doing more ebooks. We began doing ebooks, I think it might have been with Janine Olat's book, The Part That Burns, which came out in February 2021. I think that might have been our first book that we also simultaneously released as an ebook. And since then, we've done all of our full lengths as ebooks too. And that's just been a totally different experience for us too, because we assumed, people like small presses, what they want is, they want to feel the book, they want to see the book, but also everybody's moving into e-readers. It's really, I'm not an e-reader myself. Like I do want the book. I want the physical book, but it's just such a big and to me, surprising group of people who have really been adopting and, regularly purchasing our ebooks from us. And it's bringing our books to another place and a broader market. And particularly, I think, for our international readers, it's so much more cost effective to buy the ebook than it is to buy one of our books on any website and then pay for shipping and then wait for customs. And it's like, instead, you can just buy the ebook and then you actually have it right away.
Yeah, and it's also really nice for accessibility because you can have the program just read it to you, which I think is not as nice as a voice, of course, but if that's the only option, I feel like, because I'm a speech pathologist, so I work with a lot of people with disabilities, and I'm sort of loosely aware of all the weird, different, cool technology that we have, but it seems so neat because I'm not an ebook reader myself. I really tried. I had a Kindle for a minute a long time ago. It's tough, but cool for people who need it. How would you describe your aesthetic for writing? Because I feel like there's a particular texture to the writing too.
Our reading teams, they really have been directing our texture because I the way that we acquire our books is never through direct submission from like an agent or anything. Like we only are open during those periods. And our reading teams are really the first line of defense there. They know our books and they know our aesthetic, and they are the ones who go through and either, say I'm interested or not interested. And basically, I mean, I think the editors they're the next ones. If anybody says interested, our editors go and take a look. Also, our editors go take a look at the ones, even if people are voting not interested. It's been surprising to me to see how many books end up making it to the final table that actually, the editor just said, listen, there's something special here. We need to take a look at this. And indeed there is, even though the readers couldn't see it. So the readers upvote things. Then the editor for each genre will pick the top 5 or so that they think are like, these are ones I would love to work on. The teams like them. And I think this is good for the press. And then they bring it to the final editorial meeting with me and our managing director, Caleb. And also we bring in our marketing and publicity team, Gage and Abby. We've all read the books by the time we have the meeting. So you've got brains that are really deeply entrained in Split Lip reading and deciding. And the thing is, we're all different writers as well. We have a mix of nonfiction and fiction writers in there. And so, sometimes the fiction writers have perhaps a little bit more sophisticated conversation to have about the writing in there. And when it's a fiction book and, opposite with nonfiction, it's something I think is really cool and different and distinct about us. We do open for readers. Often people are a part of a literary journal, which is such great training and so, so important. I feel like anybody who wants to submit work anywhere should absolutely volunteer to work behind a part of a reading team at a lit journal. But often small presses and like the book length stuff, it's been kind of obscured. You don't really know exactly how books are being picked. I mean, our readers read without names attached.
I was going to ask that.
It was really important to me that we did that. Split Lip was named after a punk band out of Indianapolis. The aesthetic was very like DIY, fuck the world. We're doing the shit the way we want to have it. We're not for sale. And so I wanted to kind of take that and keep it moving into, the iteration we're in now, which is like, your name will not buy you an automatic birth. Your work is what moves through. I have been surprised at times because I can see on the back end the names attached. I know work would have moved up if the reading team had known who it was by. And I am always a little surprised by that, but also I see that the book didn't fit with us. And that's really what resonates with our teams is what will resonate with our editors, which is what resonates with us, which is what resonates with our readers. We've really been working to continue to diversify our teams in a lot of ways. We like having fresh blood coming in, keeping us on our toes in terms of what those terms mean to us, boundary breaking. Yeah, our aesthetic, you can read it through the books, but also I feel like it's growing and shaping and changing and moving just a little bit with every new book. I don't really know what direction we're always going, but I know that it's a direction that we're excited to explore.
You're right. It's so obscured. And honestly, in these interviews, I talked to writers from Big Five, different presses, whatever, and most of them say that the process was still kind of obscured and that they felt like they didn't have a whole lot of support or even knowledge of what support to ask for or look for. So it's really nice to hear, first of all, just being transparent about it. It's so nice. But also that y'all are actually coming together as a team. I think that's what everyone dreams of when they think about having a book published.
I appreciate that. It's really, the transparency is something that I've found really important to do. First of all, because, I've been with Split Lit myself since 2017, I think. I started as an editorial assistant to the previous publisher, Amanda Miska. And then I moved into the role of nonfiction editor for about a year. And then I started as director in January 2020. Everybody, hands up for January 2020. What a year to begin. But when I took over and was kind of like working on shaping the direction with Caleb, who's also been with SLP for the same length of time, and actually our short story flash fiction editor, Pedro Ramirez, has been with us the same length of time too. Like the three of us are the old heads. We really wanted to continue to break down that weird wall between, what's happening behind the scenes and to let people in, let people see it. And also in doing so, show the power and strength that the small press can have to offer. Since we work with a lot of first-time authors, sometimes people just have different expectations on what we can provide. I said before, I'm a Libra rising. I really hate disappointing people. I want everyone to feel really comfortable. I really hated it when, it would come through that maybe somebody had different expectations on what our capacities were. And so by clarifying that, and we send out a marketing and publicity sheet listing, deeply going into all the things we've got that we can offer before our authors sign contracts now, so that there's no belief that maybe we can do more than what we can do. We want people to know we want to help. We also are people who, this is not their full-time job. It is a labor of love, and we have worked to make it a paid labor of love, which is another thing that was very, very important to me. I've been part of, the lit community for a long time, and I've definitely done my volunteering for free, like most people do. I really wanted to show people that you can start to compensate. It's not going to be commensurate with the amount of work that people are putting in, but, we have such a large team ultimately. We've got me and Caleb as the director and managing director. We've got Gage and Abby as our marketing and publicity directors. We've got 3 genre editors. Pedro Ramirez doing short story flash fiction, Kate Finnegan doing novels, novellas, and now we have Athena Dixon doing nonfiction hybrid. Then we've also got our book designer, David, and we also have our reading teams of approximately 10 to 14 people in each of those categories too. It's a lot of people. And the thought of just being able to straight up pay everybody was like, how? But by kind of slowly integrating it in, that's why, there's always a part of me that resists it, but also there's the part that says people should be getting paid. It's why we do ask for a reading fee. Our reading teams split 25% of the profits that come in. And so if we get a ton of books for a reading period, our reading teams are doing a lot of work. And so they're getting paid 25% of that. If we get not a lot of books, our reading teams are not doing as much work, but they're still getting paid 25% of it. And we give our editors stipends too for each book that they go through the editing process with and the submission process with. And for me and Caleb and Gage and Abby, because our work is really year round, it's not per period, we get a small monthly stipend. Our book designer, David, gets a stipend for both the interior design and exterior design. And I mention all of this simply because a lot of small presses have editors and teams who volunteer their time and nobody gets paid. Listen, when I took over, there was $400 sitting in the PayPal account. We did not have money to start paying anybody. It absolutely has been a growth process and a figuring out how to take money and make sure that we're both having enough to sustain the press and all of the hidden costs that go into sustaining a press, but also making sure that our time is being financially valued just a little bit. it's a process that a lot of places could start to adopt. You don't have to overnight suddenly be paying people like livable wages. Incrementally moving up, it's made our press more sustainable, and I think that it's made all of our team members feel valued.
I know that sales is whatever, but I wonder if you guys have a barometer for what good sales feel like to you, or if you care at all about that.
Oh, that's a great question, because we have a different threshold for, say, chapbooks in comparison to full lengths. That being said, actually, our last two chapbooks sold very well. That might have been the efforts of the authors. I think it also is part of the efforts of our marketing and publicity team, who are just so adept. I mean, like, those are the hardest books to market, bar none. It's hard to get reviews for chapbooks. It's hard to get people willing to talk to authors and to treat them the way we treat them, which is like, this is a full book. It just happens to be a little bit shorter than usual. Everyone wants a book to do well. So I don't mean to be saying anything other than that. Everybody wants their book to sell well, and we want their books to sell well too, for a multitude of reasons. But sometimes it's more important that the book is in the world, I think, rather than that it's, making enough money to, I don't think anybody anymore thinks that they can quit their job by publishing with a small press. I don't even know that anybody can quit their job publishing with a big press, frankly. So it's less about that and more about the reach of a book. And I feel like that's what we focus on more, trying to get our books not exactly like the sales numbers up as much as it's into the hands of the people who we feel like this will resonate with. Maybe this will help our author, I don't know, in their additional careers. How will this help position them for whatever the next step they want to take in their writing career? Some of our more backlist books are still selling as consistently well as they did the day they came out. Some of our newer books, it's like, I feel the momentum. They came out, sales were strong, but it's like, just wait. They're going to go to some exciting places.
I can imagine that too about a lot of your books. I give The Part That Burns away for Christmas every year.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate the support, and I know Janine does too. Her book's a great example to talk about because her Substack, Writing in the Dark, it is doing gangbusters. Lots of readers are buying their copies. Again, that book came out in 2021. What a blessing to see it still selling so hard and so well, and reaching audiences that are, looking at it at a craft level, looking at it at a content level, looking at it as I want to know more about this incredible Substack writer. Again, a book that you would think, 2021, who's still talking about that? People are definitely still talking about it.
It's really like the most encouraging thing, because it's the subject matter is, one of those like hard to sell supposedly subject matters. And one of the things that I'm hearing all the time now is that memoirs don't sell. But then I've talked to some publishers who are like, well, memoirs sell to people, but publishers aren't buying memoirs unless you have a platform. But then like Janine didn't have a platform, and she had a story about a really taboo topic that, everyone, from what she told me, said was like hard to get picked up, but it was honest and it was true and it was beautifully written. And I just trust readers, I think, more.
I have to say too, like, our nonfiction books tend to sell really, really well. And I don't know if it's because we're providing that home that maybe the bigger publishers aren't willing to take a chance on, which, as a nonfiction writer myself, I absolutely believe that. And I think that small presses are the best homes for nonfiction because there's a flattening of language that we do not require. Larger presses tend to really want to see nonfiction go in a more general audience direction. And so the prose I use the term flattening, and I'm not trying to diss anybody who's able to get their nonfiction book in a bigger place, but I just feel like it's more experimental, it's more lush, the words are, and the approaches are, I'm not going to say it's more raw because everybody's books are very labored over, but it's like cultivated rawness. I think there's a reason our nonfiction books do really well. And I think there's a reason why most nonfiction books that people in the literary community are talking about are those small press nonfiction books.
Cultivated rawness, that's excellent. And I think that rings true for me when I'm thinking about the texture of your aesthetic. There's definitely like an economy of language that is really satisfying, but it's also very lush. It's really like living in that really sweet spot for me because I'm a language nerd. but I'm also biased because I write nonfiction too. I'm definitely interested in what you think people should look at right now from all time, even new books, older ones, anything that you think is like relevant for our current super awesome time period.
There's one very, very obvious one I would direct everybody toward. It was our nonfiction book that came out in December 2023. So we're almost at the 1-year mark right now. And that's Sean Enfield's Holy American Burnout. That essay collection takes place primarily during the lead up to the 2016 election day. Sean was working as an educator at a Muslim private school in Texas at the time. So it's reflecting on both Sean's experiences as a product of the Texas education system and also work as an educator, and also just the exhaustion of being Black and biracial in, I was going to say that America, but that America is kind of the America that's always been. He's critiquing education. He's also critiquing, I don't even want to say his name on here, but the person who won in 2016 and who just won again. It's more relevant than ever. And I hate that it's more relevant than ever. It kind of makes me sick. But I would also say Brooke Schaffner's novel, which was another one of our pickups from Mason Jar Press. They published it in April 2024 and then quickly went on hiatus. And so we took it and gave it a republication in August. It's a book about a couple of friends in Texas, one of whom is gender fluid, one of whom is more cisgender. Both of them, they're either the products of undocumented immigrants, or I think so. I think they're like dreamers. The books kind of follow both of their explorations in totally different ways. I mean, one of the teens goes off to college in New York and becomes a part of the drag scene, and the other teen goes to California, goes to school and gets involved with activism through a nunnery and watching their friendship grow apart and back together through them kind of struggling with their different identities. It's a novel, but these are real people. Brooke, she did a ton of interviews with people getting real stories, and some of them, of course, are based off experiences she had or people she knows. Fiction is always nonfiction with a little veneer on it. So yeah. I think that both of those books in particular are really important. Finally, because of course I can't not sell the book that's about to come out. Jade Vine's lyric essay collection, Hold Me, comes out on November 19th. I believe Jade would call themselves non-gendered. It's about relationships. They live in India. And it's about their experience with friends and family who are supportive, aren't supportive, but also finding their way into and through relationships. It's a beautiful book. It's an important perspective for us to be reading here in America as we go into 2025 and everything that will follow.
I've read one of those. So I'm okay, I'm excited.
Obviously, I should be talking about Aubrey's book, which, it's called Graphic Rage. It's about the experience of being a woman in America. A decent amount was written prior to 2020. So after the election, there was a part of my stomach that just dropped out. It felt sick. And then the other part of me thought, oh my God, I hate how well this book is going to do now. Women's rage has never really gone away, but it's going to, I feel really, really resonate with a lot of people.
I've always felt that being a woman is just the most metal experience ever. We, are constantly bleeding.
I haven't mentioned our nonfiction chapbook that's coming out in the summer, Sienna Lou's Specimen, which was the chapbook that our editorial team read for. Last chapbook period, we decided to have our editorial team, since it was our 10-year thing, we were we're going to be the ones. We're not going to have another reading team that passes them up. We're going to go in and we're going to do this. And that was open genre. And we ended up taking a nonfiction hybrid book. It's a book-length essay about a relationship, but it's about a lot more, weaving in art and how people in a relationship they're making the relationship through letters, building it and constructing and understanding it at the same time that they're living it. It's such a beautiful book. I think that people are really gonna like it as well. So there, now I've officially promoted, I think, everything on the upcoming docket.
That's great. This has been awesome, and it's a nice little reprieve.
Right, I know. It's been nice for you too, and I'm so glad to meet you in semi-person as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Yeah, take care.